How are you? First of all, how are you doing? Are you out in San Francisco? Is that right?
Yeah, I live in San Francisco. I just woke up like an hour ago and
oh, nice.
Yeah, just chill. Yeah.
A lot of people's schedules have gotten weird or messed up. I think for a lot of us who were used to going on the road and you would kind of have a couple days of shows and then you'd come home and you'd get some work done. Now it's kind of just this unending, just free time, the whole thing. And so I know some people their sleep schedules are getting really weird. Do you set routines for yourself, or are you kind of whatever goes?
Yeah, I wish I could have a routine, but I think I'm too lazy. So yeah, I used to wake up at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
And be productive, do yoga, exercise and stuff. But in this few months, I go to bed at like 8 a.m. and wake up at 3 p.m. So it's completely switched.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like, because no one's there to tell you to do something at a specific time, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have to catch a flight. How were you like that when you were younger, when you were a kid? Because when I was a kid, I would do that. I would stay up all night long, sleep through the day. And then as I got older, it kind of flipped. And now if I sleep too late, I just feel weird. What were you like as a kid? Were you out all night?
I think I was awake for like till 3 a.m., sneak into living room to watch TV after my mom's went bed or something. Yeah. So back to the roots.
Right, back to the roots, exactly. Are you finding this time now, are you, like, what mind state are you in? Are you being creative? Are you writing a lot of music? Are you doing other stuff? Or I know a lot of people are finding it hard to be creative and to get work done right now.
Yeah, I try to make new music because obviously I have no gig till maybe October.
Yeah.
But my mind is just like stuck, just like I'm stuck at home. So it's too hard for me. I don't know how people can do it. Like, quarantine is the best time to make music. And I'm like, that's so like
right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of in between those two, I guess. I mean, I'm writing some music, but then I think it's hard because it's sort of like, what are we writing music for right now, right? Because we're not going to go play it at a show anytime soon. And in that way, it's sort of freeing in that you can experiment and you can try different things. But then it's all, for me, it gets overwhelming thinking about, well, what is the point of any of it right
exactly,
now? And you said you have a show maybe in October. That would be like the earliest one?
Yeah, hopefully, because I'm supposed to be in Texas this month. But the Texas, Florida increased the corona stuff. So it got postponed to October. But now everything getting kind of collapsed again. So who knows, it's going to happen on October or...
Yeah. It's a weird time in this country to be doing anything, but especially to be doing what we're doing because there's so much uncertainty. And even for me, like, I don't know how I would feel going to play a show right now, you know? I think I would be nervous for myself, and then I'd also be nervous that, I was creating this atmosphere where other people could get sick. It's, and of course, nobody... because it's America, nobody's really doing what they're supposed to do and nobody's taking care of themselves.
I just don't understand why people can't wear masks because it's hard to breathe or whatever. But just put the clothes on your face so like helps the situation. And
Right. Yeah. It's crazy to me because it's so simple and it's turned into this whole political thing, and we don't have to get into that, but it's just such a simple thing. It is mind blowing that this has become such a well. And I was thinking, obviously you're Japanese, and in Japan and in other Asian countries, I mean, you guys have been way ahead on wearing masks in general. Is it weird to come from a culture where, and correct me if I'm wrong because I don't want to speak for you, but my impression of Japanese culture is that it's very community minded, and that taking care of the people around you is something that's just sort of, you grow up knowing that that's important, which is not really the case in America. And is it odd for you to sort of see this happening here, coming from a different culture like Japan?
Yeah, it's just weird how people connected wearing mask as again, like political opinion. Like, oh, you wear mask, so you support this. You don't wear mask, so you don't support this. Like, I just don't get it. And Japan, we wear mask as usual for some like sanitary reason, but also it's like such a Japan thing, but they were really tired to show their facial expression at the public.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, like, if you wear a mask, they can just see eyes. So people love wearing mask in a train and nobody bother them. Or the Japanese girl don't like wear makeup every day. So they just wear mask and they cut the time to do makeup. So there's so many reasons.
That makes total sense. Yeah, because it is a way to be a little more private, right? And even when you're out in public, to still keep something to yourself.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. I almost wonder, it's too late now, but I wonder if it had been pitched like that to Americans. I feel like it could have worked better,
Yeah.
Because if you had pitched it to, some super like redneck person as being like, oh no, this is a way you can keep your freedom in. Yeah,
that would be so great.
Yeah. It's weird. Do you have a lot of family back in Japan?
Yeah. My sister, mother, everyone lives in Japan.
Do you talk to them? Are you in touch with them a lot? Like, what do you guys talk about? What do they think about you being in San Francisco right now? Yeah,
they really wanted me to just come back to my hometown for a month or a few months. And it also supposed to be happen this month. But my hometown is in a different island than Tokyo.
Right.
So since my flight can't go there straightly, I have to stay somewhere for 2 weeks first, then fly to my home country. So it just sounds impossible, and my agency say no. So the whole plan got canceled, and now they're like, oh, I'm just so worried about you because America seems like they don't do anything, and actually Asia country getting way better than you. And like, that's so true.
It is true. Yeah. It's the contact tracing and all these things that a lot of Asian countries have been way ahead about. To me, it's crazy that America can't just sort of take some of that example.
Yeah.
Even if the people aren't going to wear masks, it's like, well, at least, let's spend some money to get better contact tracing and pay people to do it. It seems crazy. And so, but back to you, you mentioned you grew up on an island. Is that Sapporo?
Yeah, Sapporo.
How far away is that from Tokyo?
It's about an hour away by plane.
Okay.
Yeah. So like the Japan island, and Sapporo is in the other island called Hokkaido. And there's the ocean between. So yeah, only flight, or in the future we have a bullet train.
Right.
But right now it's just flight.
Yeah, they're going to build it eventually. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those trains are made. That's another thing. I think Japan is so far ahead on. The last time I was playing shows out there, I played a show in Tokyo and then went to Osaka on the bullet train, which was the first time I had ever taken it. I was just like, man, it's a whole nother world. It really makes you realize there's a lot we could be doing better. What was it like in Sapporo growing up there? You know, if you're on an island and the only way to get to the mainland is a plane, did it kind of feel like its own little world, its own little country? Did it feel separate from Japan as a whole?
Yeah, I think my island is more like hippie side. So everyone are laid back and chill. And the time is very slow than Tokyo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So usually people in Sapporo, after they graduate university or high school, they go to Tokyo to live and feel the like downtown vibe in Tokyo, like a Japan vibe.
And was it, musically as well? I'm curious about, when you were younger, when you were just growing up there, what kind of music was around you? I know just from reading about you that your father had a musical background. And so, yeah, just in general, like what kind of music was around you when you were, a young child?
I think there was classical, like orchestra music. My mom and father like to play, and many J-pop, Japanese pop music, like from TV show. And my mom told me on purpose she played classical music on record to let me and my sister listen to understand the music.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so
and your father was a pianist, right?
Yeah.
And then what did your mother do?
She just worked at the company and stuff. Yeah. So she's a non-musical person. But I think my father influenced her and she get into music a little bit.
Oh, that's cool. So then your father was a pianist. We already said that. But what specifically was he playing in orchestras? Was he sort of traveling around to do this?
Yeah, he used to live in Tokyo and play with like some Japanese idol on TV show.
Oh, okay. So he was kind of the backup band.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's an interesting job. Did you ever get to go see him do it when you were young?
No, I had no idea what was he doing before. And I think when I was born, he already moved to Sapporo and he changed his job to designer job, like a 9-to-5 designer job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it might be some like retire thing going on.
Right. Yeah. So he had kind of a whole second career after you were born.
Yeah.
So did he talk to you about, his music career as well? Was that something you were aware of kind of the whole time? Or did you sort of find out later that, oh, wow, he was on TV, he did all these things?
Yeah, way later, my mom and aunt told me he was in a back band. And to be honest, when I was a kid, I'm not into music this much. So when they told me like, oh, he's a really good pianist, I'm like, oh yeah, I see. And that's all.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for you, can you remember, was there a point when music really started meaning more to you really became something you were really interested in? Or did that kind of just happen over time?
I think it been happening over time, but I remember when I was in junior high school, I used to go to a English school in downtown Sapporo, and I have to take a subway from my home. And there's so many record store and CD shop near my school. So my hobby was, after the lesson, go to a CD store and check the new like Japanese rock music or some electronic music. Yeah. So getting into it, yeah.
What kind of, for electronic music, for dance music, what were you into back then, and how did it reach you? Like, how did you even find that music in the first place?
I think my first door was Skrillex.
Oh yeah, sure.
Like a 2011, like a blues step, half rock music-ish, like those kind of.
Yeah, kind of right when he
space.
was first coming out with that sound.
Yeah. And back then I was into rock music, so it's like exactly like combine electronic and rock music. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people had that experience. And even for Skrillex, he grew up playing in punk bands and rock bands. And yeah, I think it's so funny because I talk to a lot of people on this show, and people who make all different kind of music, and everybody, so many people talk about Skrillex and when he first came out, and he really changed things. It's just wild to think about. And did you, when you heard that or other music you might have heard early on, did you have any thought of making it yourself or being involved with it at all?
Yeah. I think after that, I had an idea that what if I made this kind of sound by myself? And I purchased the iPhone app that we can make music on a phone. So I kind of try recreate the sound and see the kick, the full kick and hi-hat is gonna be between, trying to understand what's going on.
Yeah, just the basic patterns, how different tracks were layered. And you were doing this all on an iPhone. That's really interesting. And how long did you just make music on an iPhone for?
I think I did for 2 years or something.
Wow.
Yeah, in a high school, after the lesson, in a bus, I just sat down in the lane of the bus and just make music on the phone.
Was anybody else doing this, or did you have any other friends with these kinds of interests?
No. Yeah, I wish. I think I have a few friends who are super into Skrillex.
Yeah.
Because they also like going to rock concert and stuff. But my friends are into more like a Japanese idol group. Like a two guys singing on a stage, or the girls group,
Or that, what's that, 50-person group? What's their name? Do you know who I'm talking about? There's a 48
the
person.
AKB48.
Yeah. That's
yeah, they're so giant.
It's so crazy, and people
people
don't know about it. Here. That there's, because correct me if I'm wrong, but that group and other groups like them, it's like seeing the Beatles or something, right?
Yeah.
That's such a crazy, just for a second. So there's 48 people in this group, right?
I think actually it's 100 people.
100 people, yeah.
60 or 80, maybe I'm wrong, but only 48 people who got voted can be in a like a main system of
Right,
the group.
right. So people vote on it.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah. It's so, the whole thing is fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's so insane.
It really is. And people get so passionate about it. I don't know. There's something really cool about something that's like so specific to one place in the world or one culture.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, in America, I mean, I think America has plenty of things about our culture that confuse other people or that other people think are weird, but something so specifically, American. I don't know what that would be. I mean, country music, I guess, but even that.
Yeah. I feel like America has like own those kind of entertainment, but not music, maybe. Like Kardashians, like a really deep people are really like AKB48.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there are, to be fair to America, because I always talk shit about America, but to be fair, I mean, certain forms of dance music were born here, house and techno and all that. So, we've done all right for ourselves, but I don't think people look at that and think, oh, that's American. You know what I mean? But so to get back to you at the back of the bus on your phone, making songs, were you letting anyone else hear these songs?
No, I was too shy. And I wish I could try or talk to people more. Yeah. I think my personality was really introverted. Yeah, introverted.
Yeah, same here, for sure.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting question. Do you still feel that way? Because for me, I don't know that I was that shy as a kid, but I was definitely introverted, kind of awkward. And I still feel that way inside. But I think one thing that music and having a career in music has given me is that it's made me better at being able to connect with people and talk with people. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, I exactly feel that way. Yeah. I live in a family residential area. And of course they don't know about me and they're just have a casual, a family relationship going on.
Yeah.
So since me and them don't have any connection and common about music, when I see them on a street or in this building, I'm just super awkward. And my roommate gonna follow up like, oh, hey, this is Momiji. And so I think I didn't change at all.
Yeah, that's fair. And it's always good to have the roommate or the friend or whoever else. There's been people like that in my life too, where you go with them and they can kind of handle the talking to people and you can kind of just walk in behind them. Yeah. Well, when did you move to America? How long have you been living here?
I think it's been for 5 years now.
Okay. And was it always San Francisco?
I lived in LA for 3 months or 4 months, like 3 years ago. Yeah. I moved to San Francisco because my friend told me she has a spot to live together and the rent was way cheaper. So,
oh, that's good. Yeah, because you don't think of San Francisco as being very cheap.
Yeah, it's really anywhere. Crazy.
Do you see yourself staying there in San Francisco? Because now everything's just weird. It's hard to think about moving or doing anything. But, San Francisco is very expensive. It's do you have friends in a community there? Do you think you'll stay there for a while?
Maybe I will stay for another 3 years or 4 years. Yeah, I have a friend and I like how small the city is. And everything is like a square.
Yeah,
and
that's
it's
true.
very similar to my hometown, Sapporo.
Mm.
So maybe that's why I feel so comfortable.
Yeah,
to
that
live
makes
here.
sense. That makes sense. And it's, I guess, maybe similar to your hometown as well, San Francisco, you know, the bigger area around it with Oakland and everything. You know, it's a big area, but you're right that it does feel, when you're just in the middle of the city, doesn't feel as big as you would think it might.
Yeah.
You know, before you even moved to America, when did music become, you know, more of a serious thing for you? As you know, so if you're making songs on your phone and you're not letting anybody hear them, and you know, even back then, was there a thought of, you know, I want to turn this into something bigger, I want to be more involved with this? Like, how did that sort of evolve for you?
Yeah, I think I always wanted to try to show my, like, some kind of creative thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe I had an idea back then, but when I started making music, I'm more like, let's see what happens next. And I didn't go to university in Sapporo, and I just had a part-time job. So I have really no idea what's going to happen. And
how did your parents feel about that, about not going to university, about, you know, sort of trying something out with music, but, you know, it's hard to know if that's going to succeed or not?
My mom is the one who said to me, like, oh, if you don't have any plan or goals, please don't waste your money to go to college and stuff. And usually Japanese people say opposite thing.
Right.
Like, just go to university first and get some job. But my mom was opposite. And yeah, that's why I'm like, okay, then I just work.
Yeah, that's really smart. That's great that you had a mom who was supportive like that. And I wonder what it is about her, where she came from, that gave her that perspective. You know, I always wonder about people's past experiences, because I think that's right. And I think more people from our generation are realizing that, you know, unless you have a plan or something you specifically want to do, that, yeah, maybe you should take some time to figure it out before you go spend a bunch of money.
Maybe because my father is a little bit different than usual, like traditional Japanese people.
Yeah.
Maybe that changed her mind and like, oh, I want to do this to my daughter or something.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, that for you, that must have been a great example, even if you found out about it later, that, you know, that does put the idea in your brain, right? That, oh, there are different ways you can have a life or different kinds of careers. Which came first? Did you release music first or did you perform first?
I released music first from my iPhone.
So some of the iPhone tracks, actually, you put those out eventually.
Yeah, because the app had a like automatical system that right after I mix down, they can upload on SoundCloud automatically. Yeah. So I just use that system and talk to random people from random country with my really broken English. And yeah.
Well, so how did you, was it all just through SoundCloud and commenting on other people's music and talking to them there? Is that how you started to make those connections?
Yeah. Somehow I talked to chiptune people back then.
Well, okay. So first of all, I'm curious because I was looking at the oldest stuff that you have on Spotify.
Yeah.
And the first track on there, or the earliest track, is Space.
Oh, yeah.
And
that one.
Was that off of an iPhone? Or was that... really?
It's from iPhone.
Man, that's crazy. Because that's a really good track. It's still
thank you.
Yeah, it still sounds really good. And that blows my mind that was off of an iPhone.
Yeah.
A few years ago, when Kendrick Lamar put out his last album, one of the beats on there, some kid produced it off of an iPhone as well.
Oh, wow.
And I think it was a young, like a 15-year-old or 16-year-old kid. So I don't know. I think that's kind of beautiful, because that, to me, if you can do it off of an iPhone, I don't think anyone needs to argue about equipment ever again.
Yeah, I think so.
What do you use now? Did you still keep it pretty small? Are you just on a computer, or did you end up getting into, lots of hardware and all that?
Yeah, I go into Cubase because when I was 18, I thought the music software is only Cubase. But there was the other one, like Ableton or FL, more not complicated one.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're still on Cubase to this day? That's cool, man. Cubase, I can't remember. Somebody else I just talked to uses Cubase, but I feel like less people are using it now. That is one of those programs that's just been around forever. And back in the day, a lot of people were on Cubase. Is it odd? I'm kind of just jumping around now, but when you collaborate with people, how does that usually work if they're on, a different software, or if they have a different process? Because when I think of your music, everything starting from Space up until recent stuff, I was just listening to the Waves EP, and all of it, I think, has... I don't know if it's a sound exactly, like a signature sound, but it's a very specific perspective. There's a style, it's like lush or deep or something. It's you, like it sounds identifiable as you.
Yay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And not everybody has that. And so I wonder, for you, when you collaborate with someone, how does that process work? How do you approach it in terms of, keeping that perspective and that style, and still, being open to other people's ideas and making something new and interesting?
I want to keep my track more like emotional and kind of sad, emo. So when I collaborate with my friend, we always talk like, oh, let's make dance music, but let's put some part that we feel like nostalgic, or the thing, it reminds people their past or something. So yeah, we try to make those kind of sounds on synthesizer and stuff.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, that's probably a better way to say what I was trying to say, which is that, it's emotional music, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting to hear you talk about nostalgia and memory too. Is that something you draw inspiration from? Is, memories and nostalgia when you're writing music?
Yeah. I often remember my childhood, or a vision of my hometown, Sapporo.
I'm always interested, because talking about creativity is kind of weird, because creativity and writing is such a, when you're doing it right, you're kind of not thinking about it and you're just letting it go. But it's almost like, I like thinking about what you're doing. It's almost like you're trying to write the soundtrack to what's already happened to you,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a cool image. It's like a soundtrack to a memory. That's kind of cool. So that's the collaborative part. And we talked about, early on, you were putting music up on SoundCloud and connecting with people for the first time.
Yeah.
Sort of collaborating online and seeing what people thought of your music. Locally, where you were in Sapporo, was there any kind of scene for DJs, for dance music? Were you involved with it at all?
Yeah, DJ scene is mostly like more old generation thing.
Yeah.
Out there, so I could not get into well. But there is like electronica ambient thing going on.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And the guy who found my music first live in Sapporo, and he is doing his own label thing. So he trying to release like ambient or like a super electronica thing.
Right. Yeah. And I guess your early music probably fit into that vibe a bit more too.
Mm-hmm.
So how did it evolve? I think over time, if you look at your whole discography, all the records you've put out, it seems like, you're kind of honing in on this sound and it's getting more focused. But there have been some interesting points. I think you mentioned that you were talking to sort of chiptune people and people in the video game world. I had to bring up, you made the iPhone bubbling song, which to me was so interesting because it was different from a lot of other things you had put out. And I think, a lot of what you'd put out leading up to that was emotional or sort of, thoughtful and deep. And then I listened again to the iPhone bubbling song last night, and it almost gave me a panic attack. It's like such a. Was that song just kind of something you made for fun, and then people picked up on it sort of unexpectedly?
Yeah, my friend made a song called MSN Bubbling.
Okay.
With the MSN notification sound.
Yeah, the messenger program.
Yeah, messenger, yeah. So I'm like, oh, what if I made with iPhone sound and maybe play at the show to get people's attention.
Yeah, and it did, right? I mean, it got kind of popular. Weren't people like using it on Vine or something like that? Yeah.
Yeah, I miss Vine so much.
I miss Vine too, man. Vine was great.
Yeah, so sad.
Were you involved? Did you make Vines?
Yeah, I was so into Vine, and the reason I got my previous booking agency was they found me on Vine.
Oh, really?
And when I was in San Francisco and had a first show, my friend took a Vine of me dancing on the stage with Juicy J and video game mashup song.
Whoa,
yeah,
that's crazy.
It got buzzed, and that's why people kind of follow my socials, and the company hit me up.
Oh, okay. So that's how it all kind of started when you first came into the States. So what was that first show?
It was, do you know GDC?
Is that the gaming?
Yeah, gaming
developers conference.
Yeah.
Something? Yeah. Gaming developers conference. I think that's it. Yeah.
And my friend do after party thing after the actual GDC convention.
Okay.
And he always invite like chiptune artists or video game music producer to let them DJ on the stage. He found me through maybe SoundCloud or any kind of socials and invited me like, oh, if you wanna play show in US, just fly here and play on the stage, but we can't pay fee.
Right.
But if you want as a sightseeing.
Did you just pay your own way? You flew all the way out there for the show? That must have been crazy. And was that your first time in the USA? Yeah,
I think it was when I was 20 or 19.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's wild. And Juicy J was there.
Oh, Juicy J song I played.
Oh, you played the song. Okay, yeah. I thought it was like one of those crazy bookings where they book like a bunch of people from different scenes.
Yeah, that would be great.
That would be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet he saw that video though. I feel
yeah. Please notice me.
Yeah. Well, that's so fun. And so how long were you just in and out? Did you fly back to Japan or did you stay in the US for a while?
Yeah, I stayed in the SF for a week.
Mm.
Yeah, I just booked the cheapest hotel in like a motel area. And coincidentally, My friend from Tokyo live in SF as an exchange student. So he kind of did translation thing for me and make new friend. And
Sure, yeah. Well, that's another whole part of this, right, that we haven't even talked about is, moving across the world and in a totally different culture and all that. But then there's also a totally different language, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, especially if you're a shy person to start with, that's got to be really tough to deal with. Were you studying English, or did you, I know you said you studied it earlier on as a kid. When you moved, did you study it, or did you just kind of pick it up as you went?
Yeah, I tried to watch TV show like Family Guy, South Park, which has like a latest new slang in it.
Yeah.
And also, I used to live with 3 American roommates, so I got to speak everything in English. Yeah, so I kind of put myself into like only English situation.
Right. Yeah. Immersion. That's smart. It must have been stressful, but
yeah.
It's interesting that sort of the chiptune stuff and the video game scene is what brought you here first.
Yeah.
Because if you made the iPhone song kind of as a, just a fun thing, was it hard to sort of switch lanes a little bit and get people to recognize you as, more of the artist that you really were, that you wanted to be, and to do the sound you wanted to do after people sort of got to know you as something else?
Yeah. I think I tried to release my music or do my own show to let people know, like, hey, I also make music. I'm from Baim, but I have like actual release, so please listen.
Right.
Yeah. So I think people slowly notice that, like, oh, she can make music too. And then long journey after that, I became more like a deep house.
Yeah. And I mean, that's an interesting part of the journey too, right? Is if you started, Skrillex is like your first introduction.
Yeah.
And then, you kind of have this journey where you're making a lot of different kinds of sounds. What was it that sort of drew you to the deeper sounds, the house sounds? Were there certain artists that you were, sort of following or paying attention to? Was it, something you saw or something you heard that kind of led you in that direction?
The label guy who found me in Sapporo, he's like he used to do a house DJ or techno DJ. So he showed me a bunch of like a bass music, techno. So always in my mind, there's a house music, but back then it was too complicated music for me. But trying to understand and listen more. Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting thing, right? Because the stereotype of house and techno and all that is that, it's, very simple music. It's just, and then when you get into it, it's like, oh no, this is kind of the deepest stuff out there. Yeah. and to really get into it, it's like almost like, people who get really into wine or something,
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe part of it is just kind of growing up musically and maturing musically. There's something about it that I think really, it lasts the test of time. It's more timeless music. I don't know why.
Yeah, like even the old classic house music from 90s still sounds very fresh.
It really does, yeah. And we're in this time, everything kind of goes in cycles. And I think we're in this time right now when people are really looking back at the 90s and trying to listen to what people were doing back then.
Yeah.
And so, once you were here, eventually you moved to the US, you got that first booking agent. What was it like when you first started going on the road and first started touring and playing shows a lot? What is kind of your relationship to touring in general?
I think the first tour was more for my like fun and like curiosity.
Yeah.
Because I had no idea what's going on in like Seattle or LA or New York or the other cities.
Yeah.
So me and my friend who used to be my kinda like a friend's manager,
Yeah.
we traveled together and we drove together to do the small tour. Yeah.
That must have been fun.
Yeah, it was fun. But also my previous booking agency's guy isn't great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because actually one day he suddenly disappeared from the company. So those...
Oh, wow.
the
He just
kind of-
disappeared.
Yeah. So we actually met in real life and did meeting. And yeah, I'm so excited for your future. Let's make it happen. But then our phone call wasn't happen because he didn't take the phone. And
Yeah.
I asked around my friends and they say like, oh, don't trust him. He just disappeared suddenly. Those kind of guy. So
Wow.
like, oh, I didn't know that. Oops.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a part of this industry, right? That I think is different than some other career paths is those people are everywhere, you know?
Yeah.
And you can kind of get far and be a weird person or be unreliable and still kind of be in those powerful positions and
Yeah.
nobody tells you, you know, until
Yeah.
you're working.
No, actually, yeah. Nobody told me.
Yeah. Well, how did you end up finding, you know, your real team, the people who you like to work with, your support system? How did you find those people?
I back to Japan for maybe like 4 months or 5 months because I was doing like US, Japan back and forth thing to like have fun at the music and back to Japan to work and save money and like doing those kind of thing.
Yeah.
And at the maybe third time of it, I was kind of tired of like, oh, he disappeared and I don't have any booking or agency. So maybe time to move on and get job in Sapporo. But then my previous agency in Oklahoma, they found me on SoundCloud and they say like, oh, I can give you a visa so you legally live here for 3 years.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
Oh, that's cool. Was that Warpath in Oklahoma?
Oh, yeah, Warpath Group.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy. I worked with them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, years and years and years ago. But yeah, I like those guys a lot. Nate was my booking agent for a while there.
Yeah, they are super nice people.
They're really nice. Yeah. And just, it's so funny to me. They're in Oklahoma, kind of in just the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And so you got the visa, you were able to come back. And was that sort of when it really started, like seriously, once you were kind of back and you had that settled?
Yeah. Like, oh, I need to make more actual releases to get gig. So I kind of started understanding what's this industry working.
And how did you end up linking up with, people like Above and Beyond, and you worked with Anjunabeats and these sort of bigger entities that were really established in that world. How did you end up working with them?
My friend, the Spencer Brown,
I love Spencer.
His production is so brilliant.
He's amazing. Yeah, he's been on this show, and I really like him. Yeah.
After Wapas, I signed with a spin agency.
Yeah.
They also have a Spencer, and we were at the Oliver Helsen show in SF. And my agency person told me like, oh, this is Spencer. He also lives in SF. And you guys have a similar, like a laid back personality. So should hang out and make music.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. We tried to make music. And Anjuna liked the unreleased stuff. So we signed. And they also say like, oh, if you have your own music, please send me. And they like it. So we decided to make a EP.
And that between you and Spencer Brown, that was the Sapporo EP.
Yeah.
Right? I thought that was interesting too, because obviously that's your hometown. And but then that must mean something very different for him. Had he been there? Why did you guys end up calling it that?
Because we were talking about what kind of sound is my like signatures, and he was like, oh, your music sounds kind of like icy, cold vibe. Like, oh, maybe that's because I used to live in a snow island and that appears in my music maybe. So we ended up like, oh, then let's name it Sapporo, because it actually sounds like the snow.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't even realize that. So is Sapporo considered the snowy part? Yeah. I grew up in Minnesota, which is also very, very snowy. And now I live in a place where there's not much snow. Do you miss that? Do you miss the different seasons? San Francisco gets seasons kinda, but it's definitely not snowing that much over there.
Yeah, I miss 4 seasons like Japan.
Yeah.
We have a super vivid 4 season, and in the summer it's so hot. In the winter it's obviously snowing.
Yeah.
So I miss those like separated season.
Yeah, it's fun. I kind of miss it too, but then when I go back home to Minnesota in the winter, it's like, man, I don't know. I kind of lost it. I can't deal with it anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know what that says about me, but
is that like super snowing, like icy cold, or?
Oh yeah, it's crazy. Like Minneapolis is where I grew
Minneapolis,
up. Yeah. And I mean, it's in the winter. Yeah, it's really, really, really ice and snow and just crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I went to Minneapolis and Chicago.
Sure.
Yeah, it was super snowing, and especially Chicago.
I lived in Chicago for a good, 7-8 years too. And yeah, it's pretty cold there.
Yeah, super cold.
It's interesting. We've talked about how your sound has kind of evolved. We talked about the perspective of it, that, it's tied to emotions, it's tied to memories. Maybe it has that icy sound. Do you feel like you're still looking for that sound, like you're still trying to find it? Or do you feel pretty comfortable now that, you've established what the sound is and now you're sort of just trying to work within that?
Yeah, I was worried about like, oh, what if I tried the new thing and the sound gonna be not me? But also I noticed like everything I do will sound like me eventually.
Yeah.
So maybe I don't need to worry. But just remember the beginning was me making music on the phone in Snowy Island.
Right.
So just trying to keep that vision in my art.
That's beautiful. I love that. And that's such a good lesson, I think, because I think for young producers, there's definitely some aspiring producers who are going to listen to this or watch this. And I think a lot of people in that situation, you think about, well, how do I find my sound? How do I, really stand out or define myself? And what you just said, I think, is the only answer. Is it's you. It's whatever you make. That's your sound.
Yeah. It's so weird how like our past or childhood really affected to what we do as a sound, or maybe like visually, or
and that we can't get away from it, really, right? I mean, I still, even if I look at something I make yesterday versus something I made when I was 16 years old, it's kind of, it might sound different, but the perspective is still kind of the same. Like I can still see all the similarities between it, and it all comes from those young years. I talk about this on the show a lot, that I think for me and for a lot of people, I'm always just trying to sort of, when I'm making music, when I'm playing music, I think all I'm trying to do is get back to that feeling of being a kid. And that feeling of when it was just fun and free and creative, and you didn't have all the rest of the career, the business, or anybody else's music to think about.
Yeah, I think so too.
Are you affected by hearing what other people do, whether it's hearing somebody's song or seeing what somebody is doing on social media, or just some new trend or some new style that becomes popular? Does that affect you? Does that affect the way you write music or think about music?
I think since I started doing DJ thing, I understand more about club music, like, oh, here's the part, the kick only. So for DJ use, or like, oh, here's the build up. So I think I get the idea of dance music template from what the other people do.
Sure. Yeah. If you see somebody play a great set, or hear a great song and see how it works live.
Yeah.
Do you like the live shows? Is that something you've come to really embrace? Do you miss not playing shows right now?
I miss playing show. From last October, my schedule became like fly on weekend and back on weekday to make music. So like back and forth. And I started getting used to it. Then now this happened, and you have no show till October.
Right, so, you're back to the old way. That might be frustrating, I think, too, because you're right. I think, your schedule was just starting to pick up, right?
Yeah.
And there was this momentum that was building. Is that a weird thing to have it kind of not reset? Because I don't think anyone's sort of losing their position or their place in this time, but I think it's just a weird time when we all have to slow it back down. Was that kind of odd to be like, oh, here we go, and then, oh, no, we got to stop again?
Yeah, because so many people told me, like, oh, you are DJ now, but DJ is a tough job, so like, be careful. They warned me, so I'm kind of committed to touring life.
Yeah.
But then everything shut down. Yeah, I feel really odd and weird.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And the thing is, it's really unclear and unsure what's going to happen in October or maybe next summer or something.
Yeah, all we can do is wait and hope that more people wear some masks.
Yeah.
Are you doing anything in the meantime? Or have you been doing live streams and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I started doing Twitch.
Do you enjoy doing that? I think a lot of DJs, everybody had to learn this new thing all at the same time, the new software, OBS, all that kind of thing. Has it turned into something you enjoy, connecting with people kind of in a different way like that?
Yeah, I like seeing my fans are communicating each other on like live time. But also, I just miss seeing people in front of me and enjoy in real life.
Yeah.
So trying to deal with the balances.
Yeah, it's a bit weird when it's because it feels so disconnected, right? To do, even though there are people watching it. It's hard, at least for me in my brain, to understand that this is a kind of connection when it's just you in your room,
Yeah.
It's an odd thing. And you've had a wide range of touring and shows at this point. I mean, from doing big, I saw some video of you in a giant arena, I think with Above and Beyond.
Oh, yeah.
What was that show?
It was their show called ABGT.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
The what
in
group therapy? Is that what
group
that is?
therapy. Yeah,
Yeah.
in Czech Republic.
Oh, in the Czech Republic. I didn't know
Yeah,
that. And that, I mean, that was like a full on arena, right? We're talking
yeah.
what, 10,000 people, more than that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was
Was that
such
the
a
biggest show you had played at that point?
yeah. My body was shaking for a whole hour, and my fingers are so shaking too. I had so much fun, but also it was just like brand new thing to me. So had a interesting time experience in a
Yeah.
good way.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure. And especially, was that like, when was that show? Was that kind of early on when you were just getting into like serious touring?
Yeah, it was in October.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point I start getting more like a DJ show.
Yeah, because to be sort of thrown into that if you haven't done a lot of touring before that or a lot of big shows, that's a lot to deal with mentally for sure.
Yeah.
When you tour and when you go to different countries, different cultures, all of that, do you change anything about your performance or the kind of music you're playing? You know, how much does the place you're in affect the kind of music you're doing?
I normally don't change my style, but I change a little bit when I play in Japan, because I know my fan base isn't so like a house or progressive back there. So maybe a little bit I change.
Yeah. And so would you play more, I mean, with Japan, I'm sure you know sort of more what's happening with the local scene.
Yeah. I remember I played some Japanese hip hop last time when I play.
Japanese hip hop. I really like hip hop in other languages. And I really like Japanese hip hop, what I've heard of it, but I need, maybe you can send me some songs.
Oh, yeah.
I need to hear more. I've really liked everything I've heard. I guess I'm curious, you know, from where you started to where you've come now, you know, where do you see yourself fitting in terms, or do you see yourself fitting into, you know, there's sort of there's this dance music culture in America. There's the EDM boom that happened a few years ago that sort of transformed the landscape. And then there's you and what you do, which I think is very specific to you. And I think it's hard to categorize.
Yeah.
You know, do you see yourself fitting in with any scene or style, or do you kind of like doing your own thing and being in between sounds?
Yeah, I think being in Anjuna definitely makes my position as a deep house, progressive house. But yeah, I think I just like making music and not put myself into the box. Like, oh, I'm in a house scene, so I can't make more deep stuff or techno. Do
you have a vision for where you want to go with it, for where you want to take it? You know, not like, you know, your next release or anything, but, you know, in 1 year, in 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is, you know, what's sort of the ideal for you? What kind of music do you want to make? What kind of life do you want to have? What kind of career?
I would love to keep doing, release my track and be on tour, those kind of life.
Yeah.
Also, since I start getting into nightclub and club scene, I'd love to continue making a dancey track.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So maybe getting even more into the dance world, whatever that means. Well, that's great. This has been awesome. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah,
I'm glad you're doing well out in San Francisco. Are you staying sane? You doing all right? Like what do you do outside of music? You know, how do you stay happy and healthy in this kind of time?
I try to cook more food for myself and my roommate, because I think cooking is so similar to making music. Like we need to prepare the ingredients, salt, pepper, meat, the kick, hi-hat, snare, all combined together in one dish as a one track.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And that's actually a really good metaphor because you're right, with those simple ingredients, it's the same kick, snare, hi-hat. We're all kind of using the same ingredients, and then depending on how you prepare it, it could be totally different. That's a good one. I like that. I'm going to start using that.
Yeah. So I do cook, and also, have you ever made a slime?
Oh man, when I was a kid,
So I'm getting into making slime lately.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's such a weird hobby, but yeah, I like making slime with like school glue, and depends on my mood, I put color or glitter stuff.
Right, yeah. And then, so what, it's like, it's glue and something else, and then it's kind of this like putty you can play with, sort of?
Yeah.
Huh.
And put some like shaving foam to make fluffy.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's so cool. I love that.
Yeah.
That's great. That almost sounds like meditation or something to me,
meditation.
You know? Is there anything else you want to get out there? Anything else you want to let people know? Anything else that's on your mind before we get out of here?
Yeah, I had a great time, and thank you so much for inviting me. And I think I needed to talk to people and be social during this quarantine.
Yeah, me too.
To back to human. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That's really nice. Well, I'm going to end just by asking you one last question. It's the question I ask at the end of each one of these episodes. Just looking for a memory or a moment in your life. It could be from any time when kind of in a single moment, music really affected you, really meant something to you. And it doesn't matter what the memory is, doesn't have to be significant, kind of just the first thing you think of.
When I was maybe 7 or 8 years old, I had a piano at home, and I used to go to piano school to just play classical music on a seat.
Yeah.
But one day, I just randomly tried to make my own music on piano. And my father was in different room hearing my music and asking me like, oh, whose song is it? Because it sounds great.
Oh, cool.
So I was like, wow, people feel my own music is great. So maybe it's going to be my new hobby or something.
Oh, and that's beautiful. Yeah.
That was kind of my first experience of people say your music is good.
Right.
Even it's not good.
Well, sure. But I mean, to have that be your dad too.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think we've covered a big influence in your life, and you made a song named after him as well, right?
Yeah.
We'll get out of here, but I'm just curious because we're talking about him, making a song for your father. What is it? Just dad? What's it called? Dad's song or song for dad?
I think it was just Dad, I remember.
Okay, just Dad.
Yeah, such an old song,
it is an old song. Do you remember, why that song, making that song, why you made it at that time?
Yeah, because my father really mean to me, but also I kind of have a regret that I didn't talk to him well, because, every high school student are being mean to parents and argue every day. So I was in the phase. So I wanted to use my creativity to respect my father and kind of want to tell him, oh, you're the inspiration of what I'm doing right now. So thank you. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I don't know what his reaction is or would have been, but I feel like that's something, if he was a musician himself, I feel like that's a very meaningful way to do it. Man, well, I love that. That's beautiful. I don't think we
Thank
could
you.
have ended on anything better than that. Yeah. And yeah, I love talking to you. This was really fun. Thank you for doing
Yeah,
it.
thank you so much.
All
Bye.
right. Bye-bye. All right, that's the show. Shout out to Qrion. Great to have you on. I really enjoyed that. For everybody out there listening, I hope you enjoyed that as well. Don't forget, Qrion is streaming on her Twitch channel all the time. You got to go follow her there for DJ sets, production sessions, everything. The link for her Twitch as well as all of her new music is going to be in the description of this episode. My name is Willy Joy. Also in that description, you can find links where you can go follow me and come join the back-to-back Discord server. That is my server, my chat. I want you in there. I want to meet you. I want you to become part of this awesome community we got going on. Come chat with us. I'm in there every single day. If you're a music producer, come share your music. If you're not, just come share whatever music you're listening to right now. Come tell us about your life. Let's chat. Let's connect. And you can always hit me up directly if you'd like as well. backtobackpod@gmail.com is the email address, or social media is @WillyJoy or @backtobackpod. If you enjoyed today's episode and you want to support this show, the best way to do that is by spreading the word. So put up a tweet, tag us in a post. Anytime I see somebody out there spreading the good word, I'm always going to be replying to you, reposting your content, and just generally chatting, man. I love meeting the listeners of this show. That's one of the most fun parts of doing it. So with all that said, that is another episode in the can. Shout out to the amazing Qrion. Shout out to you, the amazing listener. And I don't know, shout out to myself because, hey, why not? Somebody's got to do it. So that's it. I hope you guys are doing well out there. I hope you are happy, healthy, and taking care of yourself. I hope this week brings you whatever accomplishments you're working on. I hope it brings you closer to any goals you might have in mind. And mostly, man, I hope you have some fun. I hope you get to relax. That's something we all got to be doing more in these crazy times. So that's it. Lots of amazing episodes on the way soon. Take care of yourself. Take care of the people around you. And I will talk to you next Tuesday. For Back to Back, this is Willy Joy. Peace.